My special guest today is an all-round entertainer who started out as a child actor, spent 18 years in the cruise line industry working for the biggest cruise companies on the high seas, became the youngest ever cruise director in the world at age 22. More recently, he's worked as a TV presenter in the UK, and today he spends most of his time as a transformational coach, a mindset trainer and speaker, helping people believe in themselves and fulfill their dreams with his program, Engage with Success. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Paul Becque. How are you, sir?
Hey, Joe. Great to see you again. How you doing?
You too, mate. It's been a long, long time.
How many years, eh? When did we last work together? 2000...
20 years ago.
Hey?
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
How's life in the UK?
Wet this week. It was hot last week, but this week we've gone back to the rain.
Really?
So, yeah, be much happier being in Texas.
Hey, we've had a bit of rain. We've recently just had tornado warnings. So,
maybe not then. Maybe not.
it's okay, but you're in London now, right? You live in London today, yeah?
No, we did. We moved about 8 years ago. So we spent about 10 years in London, and then we moved out just for the kids, really. We wanted to get them into smaller schools. So we moved out into the sticks. We're in the smallest county in the UK called Rutland, and we live in a little town called Uppingham.
Like a little village.
Yeah, what we call it the village, and then all the locals get annoyed and go, "It's not a village, it's got a town hall." There's only 4,000 people here. It's like a village.
Paul, born and bred in Dover, England, started out as a child actor. You actually played the Artful Dodger in Oliver in the West End of London at the age of 14. Did you study to become a child actor?
Oh, no. I when I was about 9 or 10, I got into a school play in, I guess that's still called infant school then, isn't it? Or primary school, that's called primary school. So I was in primary school, just got into, and I was quite lucky. I had the smallest role in the show. I think it was the Herald, and something happened and they said, "Oh, can you play a bigger role?" So I became the king. And then about 3 or 4 days before the show, the guy that had the lead role chickened out. Well, the kid, 9 years of age, chickened out, and they said, "Can you be the prince?" I'm like, "Go on then." So that was my first taste of acting, and this is brilliant, and I loved all the applause, and I thought, people like me, and I wasn't accustomed to that. I never really, I've always been a bit of a loner. I don't know why. I just enjoy my own company. And so getting all that attention, I really enjoyed. And then when I went to secondary school, I didn't immediately go thinking, I'm going to be an actor. So it was probably my second year. So I would have been, 12 years old. And I saw one of my good friends at the secondary school acting. And I thought, I'll give that a go. So I joined the theatre club. They put me in a show, and then they're like, "You're brilliant." So they gave me a big role the next year, and then the drama teacher really took to me, and he started putting me out for auditions. So that's how it happened. It was all luck. And I say luck because, it turned out to be the best for me. It could have been bad luck, but I was terrible in school. I did go to a grammar school, but I only got 2 out of 7 O-levels. So I think they were kind of glad to see me go. And I just pursued the acting because it made me happy.
Born entertainer. I was the same. I mean, I walked out. I just turned 16 and walked out. Didn't do any exams because I was playing in bands at the time. And 16, I thought, I'll be a rock star by 18. Everything will be sorted by then. But I was a rebel. At that age, you know everything. Yeah. So your introduction to the cruise line industry, you got a gig as a mime artist, then a DJ, and that was with Costa Cruise Lines, right?
Yeah. What happens, I guess entertainment might be in the blood. My sister went to dance school, and then when she was old enough, they sent her to real dance school. So she became a qualified dancer. And then she got a job on cruise ships. And it hadn't even crossed my mind to go to cruise ships. And then she's like, "Hey, I can bring family out for cheap or for free." I can't remember what it was. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm there." She was in the Caribbean. So I got like a cheap or free ticket out there, went and did a cruise and went, "Oh my God, this is changing my world." And I'd always liked the idea of getting to America, and she was sailing the Caribbean. So I did that. It was only a week's cruise with Carnival Cruises, one of their first new ships called the Holiday. And then I came back to the UK, and I told my best friend, we kind of did a mime show together. I'm like, "Dude, we got to get on the cruise ships. You're going to love it." And everyone's like, "How are you going to do that?" So I thought, we're by the stage. So we bought, the newspaper, the stage, and looked for jobs on cruise ships. And about 2 weeks later, jobs came up. So we started auditioning. and then went to Costa in London. Everyone's like, you'll never get that. How are you guys going to get a job as a mime artist? But because it was an Italian cruise line, and they had lots of Italians on board, and they had lots of South Americans on board, or I should say South and Central Americans, lots of Mexicans, lots of Colombians, lots of Argentinians on board. And they wanted entertainment it didn't matter what language you spoke. So they were looking for mime artists. And so they said, would you mind DJing as well as being mime artists? We're like, yeah, go on then, we'll do it. And of course, there we were in the Caribbean, ended up doing that for 6 years.
Wow. You became the youngest ever cruise director in the world at age 22. How did that happen so quickly?
Well, it's quite interesting because we got on just as the robots started DJing, and we started creating lots of revenue in the bar because the previous DJ had just been playing tapes. And so they said, if you can really make this place rock and make more money for the cruise line, they'll love it. So we did. And then I got to become friends with the cruise director, head of entertainment. And he basically told me the sort of money he made. I'm like, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make some money. And I didn't just want to entertain. I wanted to make money. If I could make a living out of it, I could see myself being at sea forever. So I committed, and I said, I'll do whatever it takes, to be really good. And so I started working hard, doing more and more tasks, getting involved in more in the entertainment. And then I remember him saying to me, it takes a while, you have to get some experience, but the more experience you do, the harder you work, the quicker you can do it. And during that time, everyone started laughing at me saying, I was 20 when I got on the ships. And they said, you've got to be 25 to be an assistant cruise director. You might get to be a cruise director at the age of 30. Well, I wasn't prepared to wait 10 years because that's a long time, right? When you're 20, yep. That's half your life again. That ain't going to happen. And I was lucky. I picked up a Tony Robbins. I picked up a book called Positive Thinking. Someone recommended it to me. And that I found that really interesting. And then somebody told me about a book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And that rocked my world. And I started thinking differently. I started taking all this stuff on board. And then I got hold of a Tony Robbins book. And I started following his idea, his big idea back in, this is in the 80s, 89, maybe 90 by then. And he was all about model. Find someone that's got what you want already and do what they do. So I modeled myself on the cruise director. And within a few months, this guy said to me he wanted to retire. He was prepared to teach me everything because the only way he could get off the ship is if he had a replacement. So I gave it everything I got. And then like a year and a half later, I was cruise director. No one could believe it.
Wow. Age 22. Unbelievable. After your first 6 years at sea, you spent some time in Miami and Mexico before moving to LA to study at the American Academy of Dramatic Art. Tell us about this period of your life.
All right. So I did 6 years on the ships. Loved it. It was brilliant. And I guess I kind of got bored. So they knew I wanted to leave and said, can you go to Miami, work in the office and be in charge of all the entertainment on all the ships? So I went to do that, but I realized quickly I wasn't really set up for an office job. It's just not me. So then I reached out to some friends that I'd made on the ships. I lived in Mexico, went and lived in Acapulco for 6 months, loved it. And then I went and lived in Mexico City for 6 months. And that was quite interesting because the 6 months in Acapulco was with a pretty poor family, 5 boys, 5 girls, mum and dad, in a 3-bedroom house. Wow. And I, at the time of my life, really, really good. In fact, I'm still good friends with those guys now. Still good friends because of, social media. It's easy to reach out. Yep. I probably talk to them a few times every year. And then the next 6 months, I went to Mexico City, and that family were very, very wealthy. They had chauffeurs, gardeners, cooks. And I remember being at the dinner table one night, and they were arguing about where they want to go for holidays. I'm thinking, this is crazy. The people with no money are really happy. The people with all the money aren't. And then after 6 months there, I then went over to the USA. And my sister lives in Seattle, Washington. She's still there today. She absolutely loves it. And I can understand why. It's a beautiful city. And while I was there, I saw an advert for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. So I thought, hey, the acting, it's jumped out, serendipitous. So I flew down to LA, auditioned, and then they invited me to go for summer school. So brilliant, I was in. And I can't remember how long it was, maybe 6 weeks over the summer holidays. And then they said, you're great, would you like to go full time? So I said, yes. But my usual way, I'd spent all my money having a great time. So I'm like, I can't afford it. You want 10 grand a year? I ain't got that. So I went back to the ships. I said, can you hold my place for a year? And they said, yes. So I went back to the ships. And then a year later, I came back to LA with like $100,000.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I went to school, and I thought.
How old was you at this time with 100 grand in your pocket?
About 28. Wow. About 28 years old. Yeah. So I bought a car, and I sold 1965 Chevy Nova in Seattle, Washington. And I took 3 days to drive down the coast, just camping out. I remember being in California. What's the name of that little place? There's a little place with a cove, and I camped out on the beach. And I remember woke up in the morning, saw whales jumping. It was epic. Went to the redwood forest. It was just a really good time on my own, but really, I've always been happy on my own. Got to LA, found a place to stay. It was like a fraternity house, like 5 guys, 5 girls, but it was really good fun. I enjoyed it there. But my problem was, once again, I figured that I'm in LA and I thought I'd arrived. So in my head, I was a movie star, even though I was only at school, training to be an actor. So in 6 months, I was dating Miss Ohio. I was renting limousines. We were flying helicopters. And within 6 months, I was completely broke again. But it's great. And I love LA. I still love it. I know people knock it and they talk about the smog and all sorts of things, traffic jams and that. But I absolutely love Los Angeles. I'd go back in a heartbeat. I lived in Pasadena. Brilliant time. Yeah. Oh, and when I was there, because I'm quite spiritual, I've always believed in life. And something, I don't know if it's a book I read, but something inspired me to give back to the community, because I was getting so much. I was so fortunate. And so I joined the local sheriff's department, only as like a volunteer sheriff. And then every Wednesday, I started off by going to the sheriff's department in Altadena. It was actually Altadena. And I would be doing thumbprints, fingerprints and stuff like that. And then a few weeks later, they said, do you fancy driving a car? Can you deliver stuff around the county for us? So I'm like, sure, it'll be great. So they give me the keys to a car every Wednesday. And I remember one day they gave me a 5-liter high-speed pursuit car, like a Mustang. Oh, my God, I loved it. And then another time I got a mountain rescue truck. And then another time I was going down the motorway, and I think at the time he was only meant to do like 60 miles an hour, but I was putting my foot down. I was rushing to get something delivered, and I was doing about 70. And then another car behind me had the blue lights on. I'm like, oh, man, I'm in trouble because I'm going too fast, and they've caught up with me, or they're checking on me. So I had to pull a car over, and the guys come down. I can't remember if it was sheriff's or if it was police, but I really thought they were going to say you were going too fast and you meant to be following the orders, blah, blah, blah. But it turned out to be somebody from out of state, and they didn't know how to get somewhere, and they were just asking me if I could give them directions. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no idea. I'm from England. I just happened to be driving a police car.
I'm not a real policeman.
Yeah. Oh, it was so great. And the guys at that office were just fantastic. Sheriffs and police in the US, for me, they do a great job, and they have a very tough job. I know they're having a tough time right now. Yeah, I know a lot of cops in downtown San Antonio. A lot of them come in the bar where I work, And, I know a lot of them guys, yeah. But you started in some productions, though, when you were in LA, right? You did a bit. Yeah. I actually did 6 movies. It was because I was in acting school. I did 2 years, and then you could stay for a 3rd year and be in the school company to get experience. But I was really experienced, so I didn't care. And on the cruise ships, I was in the shows as well, so I was performing as well. And so I thought, I don't need that experience. I've got it. So I got an agent who I'm still friends with today. And then he started putting me out for work, and I got to go for a few movies. So I did 6 things, nothing big. A couple were one was called Wild Bill. That's a big movie. And then I did a few TV movies. One was something like the Elizabeth Taylor story, the O.J. Simpson story, stuff like that. So it was fun. But my visa ran out. I had 4 years on my visa. And when it came to an end, I couldn't stay. And I didn't want to stay illegally because, I think the system's fair. If you can do something that an American can't, you can stay and get a job. So funnily enough, I was working at Universal Studios and I was in production. And I asked them if I could stay, and they're like, we have to do something an American can't. And unfortunately, we can't do that. So they're like, I got hold of an immigration lawyer, and they said, can you make Yorkshire puddings? Can you make something, British food that no Americans can do? I'm like, no, I'm an actor. So I had about 2 weeks to go, and I jumped on a plane. I was broke again by that point. I had to sell my gold Rolex. I had to sell my video camera. Oh no, I kept that. I just kept my laptop and my video camera. They were the only 2 things I kept. Oh, I remember I sold my car, and everything went. And I put out all my clothes and everything, and just said, "Help yourself." So it all got taken. People came out, like a load of seagulls trying to get free food. And they took everything. I just kept my laptop, kept my video camera, and I jumped on a plane and went to Hawaii. Didn't know anyone. And I went to a hotel the first night thinking, how am I going to make this happen? Because I've got no money. And I met a girl in the bar and she said, you can stay at mine. So I'm like, sweet. So I had a great time in Hawaii. And then about a week later, she told me about her friends who were going to the North Shore to surf. So I said, I'll do that. So I went to North Shore and learned to surf. I didn't know anyone, so I slept on the beach in a hammock every night. But I did learn to surf. And then the second or third night that I was there, I met all these people from Japan, and they came over to surf, and they were doing tequila shots, invited me in, I partied with them, and then they shaved my head. So I was brown as a berry, shaved my head. I'd grown a goatee because I was in the sheriff's department before I left LA. And then when I flew back to the UK, just before my visa ran out, my mum's waiting for me at the airport. And I walk over to her and say, hi, Mum. And she's looking at me like, well, I don't know who you are, because I had a shaved head, a goatee, and I was brown as a berry. She's like, I don't know who you are. I'm like, I'm your son. And she's like, no, you got the wrong. I'm like, I am your son. It's Paul. And she couldn't believe it. We still joke about it today because I was just such a different person by the time she got to see me.
So when did you go back into the cruise industry?
So because of that, I went back to London and I thought, I'll get a job in the theatre. But it was a lot harder than I thought. In fact, I ended up waiting tables. So you can imagine I've gone from making really good money to being broke, to making really good money to being broke again. And here I am now. And I called a friend. I slept on her sofa for a few weeks, was auditioning, couldn't get a role. Ended up waiting tables in a French restaurant. Get this, I would pretend I was French. I found I got better tips if they thought I was French. So I'd be going to the table. What would you like tonight? And garlic, good choice. And they'd be like, what part of France you from? I'm like, Toulouse. Anyway, I ended up getting a phone call out the blue saying, we're bringing out a brand new cruise line. Could you come and work for us? I'm like, oh man, that's just what I need. So I ended up flying to Aruba and cruising out of Aruba. And I did that for another year. And then that led to another cruise ship, which led to another cruise ship. And then I ended up being flown to Greece to go on another cruise ship, which is what eventually led me to the Sea Wing, which is where I got to meet you.
You, my first boss. Let's
Sorry about that, Joe.
Let's talk about Sun Cruises and the Sea Wing ship.
For me, that was a really interesting ship because it was my first British cruise line. So I'd always worked for the Americans, right. And I'd mastered what it is the American passengers enjoyed and wanted. And then I got a call out of the blue saying, can you come and do this ship? It was a new agency and they wanted to go on and compete with the agency that'd been working for that cruise line for many years. And so it was a big challenge. And I got to admit, I was quite nervous, quite anxious, thinking all my humor, all my jokes, all my tricks, all the shows that I'd learned and put together were really American based. And I think everyone's aware that the Americans have very different humor to the Brits. Yeah. And so I was a bit concerned thinking maybe I'm really American. But anyway, I went and, I was really fortunate because I even got involved in the process of hiring the acts. So I got to go to Birmingham, do auditions, and I should have known I was in trouble already because one of the dancers, oh my God, forgive me, ladies, for being a hot-blooded fella, but this young lady was beautiful, and I thought, oh, if she got on the ships, I'd be happy to date her. Anyway, we hired her. And then the first night I got to the ship, like 3 months later, flew down to Piraeus, Greece, to join the ship. She's there. And then a couple of the people said, oh, let's all go out for dinner. So, prior to lockdown and all that sort of stuff. We're talking 20 years ago now. And so we went out for dinner and my heart was pounding, absolutely pounding, because I was madly in love with her already. Anyway, about a year later, well, probably about 6 months later, we started dating. And today we're married and got kids.
I remember.
Yeah. So all those palpitations and anxieties and nerves all turned out to be true gut feelings. And I think it's fair to say most of my life I have, even though it's got me in trouble a lot, followed my gut feeling. If I get a feeling, I'm just going to follow with it. If it sounds like fun or if it's trouble, I'm just going to go with it anyway. And that's paid off. But I was very fortunate because on that British cruise ship, they actually really enjoyed all of the great stuff that the Americans enjoyed. And so we found that we were able to bring a lot more to this tiny little ship, which was an old Norwegian Caribbean cruise line ship. No, Royal Caribbean, I think it was. No, let me think. I think it's NCL. So it's an old NCL ship.
Yeah.
And we really brought it to life. Had a fantastic season in Greece and Turkey. And then in the winter months, they took us over to the Far East, and we did Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and then back again in the summer, and then back out to the Far East for the winter. It was epic. And I can honestly tell you that the 2 years I spent on that little ship with the Brits was fantastic. I will tell you right here, right now, that was my best experience ever. And that's quite a contrast because of that ship and my experience there, I got a call to go and work for Cunard, which is another British line, because I was on a British ship. And they flew me from Thailand all the way to Miami to go and audition 6 cruise directors they wanted for the Queen Mary 2, or 6 they were interested in. And they wanted to pick 2 of us so we could, flip-flop. One's on, one's off, one's on, one's off, one's on, one's off. And it's that experience on the Sea Wing that actually got me the job on Cunard.
Wow. Do you know, I'd done 10 months as an entertainer prior to that in Cyprus, in the hotels. And I decided I wanted to get on the ships. So I did some auditions, went down to London a number of times. And I passed all the singing auditions. And he said, "Can you come back for the dance audition?" I'm like, "Listen, I'm not going to waste I'm not going to waste your time and mine." I was at Elstree Studios one time, and I said, "I've been on 11 trains today. I'm not going to do it again on Thursday." So I thought, I really want to get on, but this isn't going to happen, But then I seen an ad for Global Entertainment in the stage, and I thought, I'm just going to have one more crack at this. I went to, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were at my audition. I remember going in, and I got seen to at 20 to 5. I was there all day. Finally goes in, I sang World on a String, How Do You Keep the Music Playing. I remember Tracy being there, and there was a panel, and I'm sure you were there as well.
Was it in Birmingham?
It was in Birmingham, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been it. We did a couple of days of auditions.
Moseley Dance Centre, right, yeah. And then the lady who's...
That's it. That's exactly it, yeah.
So the lady who's, I think she was part of the ship or one of the presidents or whatever.
Carol Papathanasio.
Okay, well, she said to me, can you move a little? And I said, yeah. That was it. 10 days later, gets the call. You've got the lead male production vocalist job. I remember flying out. Funny enough, when I was on the plane, Helen was next to me, Helen and Sophie, on the plane out there.
You weren't flirting with my wife, were you?
I was flying with your wife, or you knew her, yeah?
No, I said flirting.
But I actually got on then. I remember just sweating when the rehearsal started, and it was Hannah and Tracy. They said, it was Hannah who said, "I thought you said you could dance." I said, "No." They asked me could I move a little bit. I didn't know you wanted to throw chicks over my shoulder and stuff. Anyway, as you know, the team worked really well with me and cut my parts down. Got kicked in the face a couple of times being in the wrong place on stage, but got through it. Got through it. And that was my first ship, yeah.
And yeah, was it a good experience? Did you enjoy it?
It was a great experience. I did 5 years total after that. I went to Fort Lauderdale. That's where I ended up where I am today, because I think the company thought, rather than him being in 9 shows, he's going to be a nightmare. Let's send him to Florida where there's only 2 shows and let him learn them. So I did 2 ships, and I ended up doing the cruise director gig for 2 years. Yeah, so I did that for 2 years. And then I used to drink in the Irish pub. They sponsored me, brought me to Texas. That's where I do my gigs now, yeah. But, wow, yeah, it was a great experience. And we all had a lot of fun on that ship. There were some crazy times. I remember one time, Martin Lilly came on board. He was the guy who come on to make sure everything was okay.
Yeah, he hired all the entertainers for actually open wide, wasn't it? Open wide. Okay.
But do you remember the nights? There was you and me and this couple we met from London. We were at the bar drinking Sambuca shots, and the flame, and the girl was telling me how to light it on fire and stuff. And you set Martin Lilly's sleeve on fire, as I recall. Do you remember that night? And
No.
We were hammered, but I remember you saying, "Oh no, this he's come on to make sure everything's okay with the entertainment." And you set his sleeve on fire.
He probably loved it, because he's the guy that ended up going to Cunard
Yeah.
He became head of entertainment for Cunard, and he's the one that called me and said, "You're going to come on the Queen Mary too."
Wow.
So, and actually, I turned out at the auditions, everyone else, at that time I wasn't even 40, I was in my 30s, and everyone else was like late 50s, 60s. And they said, "Listen, we really liked you. Your work's great, and you've got lots of experience. However, you're so much younger than everyone else. And Queen Mary 2, we think it's probably going to be an older cruise director. So would you take the QE2? So I said, go on then, I'll give it a go. So they said, if the QE2 goes well, then we'll put you on the Queen Mary 2. So I went on the QE2. And again, quite an interesting story, because our second cruise, and it was quite daunting, you know, such a famous ship. And it was fun. I enjoyed it, but they were very much stuck in their ways. And my mandate, they told me, go on there and blow all the cobwebs off. Really bring it to life. So, of course, that didn't make me popular with a lot of the senior officers, because they've been doing the same thing for many, many years. And understandably so, because it's so popular and people went back because they loved it.
Yeah.
But they just wanted me to make it a little more modern, a little more available to a newer audience. So the second trip was up to the fjords, and then up to Land of the Midnight Sun. And so I remember saying, listen, if it's going to be Land of the Midnight Sun, why don't we keep the audience up all night? We could do like a New Year's Eve party. So we'll have the show. And then after that, we'll get everyone in the main lounge, and we can have a New Year's Eve party. And then at midnight, we can pop champagne for everyone, do a conga line up the stairs, and get them out onto the back deck and have a barbecue, because it's still daylight. And they're looking at me like, idiot. And they're basically like, yeah, this is our chance to get rid of him. So let's give him enough rope to hang himself. And so they basically agreed to do it. And you'd never seen anything like it. We got a Kylie band on when we went through Scotland, and they came on, and as we're making our way up to the Land of the Midnight Sun, they were teaching everyone how to do like Scottish folk dancing. And that was all in preparation for the midnight, you know, the New Year's Eve party. And the reason nobody liked the idea is because it was June or July. You don't go up there until it's June or July, because it's rough season, freezing cold otherwise. So it's June or July, and that's what they couldn't understand, why we're doing a New Year's Eve party. But the show was a big hit. We went to the ballroom. It was heaving. Of course, everyone waited up to get their free champagne, one glass of free champagne at midnight. And then after that, they had to pay for it. We did the conga line, and they think, you know, this is an older audience. They're not going to want to follow. They did. They wanted fun. We got them up the stairs. We got them out onto the back deck, and we barbecued till 6 a.m. And they said it's the highest revenue it had made in over 20 years.
Wow.
So then they called me up and said, want to do the Queen Mary too? So I got shipped out to her in the inaugural season.
I actually remember that coming in Fort Lauderdale and the security
Beautiful
around it. In fact, I think that's the last time I saw you. I had lunch with you in Fort Lauderdale. You were there. I think you were there with Princess, actually. I think you and Helen were there.
Oh, yeah, I went on
that's right, that's what it was.
There's another crazy story. So I did 2 years on Queen Mary 2, and I retired, because we knew we wanted to get off and get married.
Yep.
So I said, right, done. I'm finished now. I'm going to go home. But Helen was on Princess, and she was sailing out of Hawaii. So I said, I'll get on a plane, go and spend a couple of weeks with her on the, you know, just as a passenger.
Yep.
So flew out to Hawaii, and then within about 4 days, there's a bing bong, pull back, please come to the bridge, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what have I done now? I'm a passenger and I'm in trouble. So I go up to the bridge, and the hotel director's there. And he's like, you'll pull back, yep. You're from the Queen Mary 2, yep. He said, well, any chance you could become cruise director on here? Are you taking the mickey? He's like, no. Can you be cruise director on it? I'm like, why would it? I'm on holiday. He said, yeah, but we need someone to cover, because this cruise director's got to go off. A family tragedy or something had happened. So I'm like, how long will I get to stay for? And they're like, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? What do you want to do? I said, go on then. So I ended up being cruise director on Helen's ship, where I went on as a passenger.
Wow.
And I had a great time. And in fact, she didn't know it was coming, but that's when I actually proposed. I'd been home, seen her mum and dad, and asked if I could propose, you know, because I knew they were quite
old-fashioned.
But old-fashioned, traditional.
Yeah,
and Dad had said, yeah, that's fine, and as long as the ring was a big one. So I showed him the ring. He's like, okay, that's fine. And then I proposed, and she said yes. Brilliant. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. Somebody filmed it.
Oh, really?
And I was pretty tanked up, because I wasn't sure she'd say yes. So, yeah, it's quite a fun memory.
Wow. How many ships did you do in total?
I did 6 cruise lines. I don't count as Princess's one, really, because it was, you know, only ad hoc when I was at the end, but they would have been my 7th cruise line. And over the years, I probably did about 20 ships.
Wow.
More importantly to me, it was never the ship or the line that mattered. It was the destinations. You know, I love Alaska. If you've never been on an Alaskan cruise, gotta go. Sailing out of Seattle or sailing out of Vancouver, just amazing. The Far East was fantastic. I love Singapore, love Malaysia, love Thailand. There's so many great places. I was lucky enough to do 60-day cruises. 60 days out of Miami. We went all the way around, so through the Panama Canal, all the way down to the Southern Cape, and then over to Antarctica, back up to the Falklands, back up to the Caribbean, down the Amazon, and then back up to Florida. And that was 60-day cruises. And that was probably my most challenging. But it was destinations that always made me choose where I was going. I never thought, I want to work for that line, or I want to work for this particular ship. It was always, where's it going? That's what mattered to me most. And I guess the Queen Mary 2 appealed to my ego. It wasn't my best experience of cruising ever, because a lot of the people came on to impress themselves. They didn't really come to have a good time. They just wanted to impress themselves.
Saying I've been on the Queen Mary.
They were the people that came on board the ship, and that may not be true now. You know, this is back in 2001, 2, and 3. So they wanted to come on and impress themselves by being on the biggest ship in the world. But as a cruise director, what a great way to end my career. So, 18 years, end up being the youngest cruise director in the world, to end up being on the biggest and having the best cruise ship in the world. In fact, I've got a picture in my lounge that they gave me as a retirement gift, and it's the QE2 and the Queen Mary 2 next to each other. It's like 4 foot by 4 foot painting. It's beautiful. I was very, very fortunate.
You retired from the ships after an amazing career in the industry. Next up, television presenter.
Well, because we got married and wanted to settle down on land, I had friends that couldn't quit the ships. The money's good, the lifestyle's great, you're traveling all over the world. Why would you want to give it up? But I just didn't want to be like a senior officer at sea and not get to see my kids. So, and we knew we wanted kids, so I had to get off. So I thought, if I'm not going to go back to the ships, I'm going to have to get a job I love. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the ships. So we gave ourselves a year, said if we don't make it in a year, if we can't get jobs and settle down in 1 year, we can go back to sea, and then we can decide what we want to do and work it out then. So my first job was to try and get a job in TV. That's the first thing I thought I'll do. And I had been a bit unlucky, because my plan was to use, I had a nest egg. I had some stocks and shares. I've been stashing some money away, and thought I'll use that, and that'll get me through this year. So worst case scenario, if I get no work, at least I can use that money. But then about 3 weeks after being on land, I called up my stockbroker and said I wanted to get my money out. How much have I got in there? Because, you might put 10 grand in, and then it goes a bit bigger. You might have 13, and then you put another 10 grand in. It goes up. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And so in the end, I had like 80K I'd put in. So I figured that's going to get me through this year. So I call him up and ask him what is available now. Is it gone up? Am I talking? Have I doubled it? What's going on? And then he says to me, hang on. I went, what's going on here? He said, hang on, let me check. Hang on, that can't be right. I'm like, wait, what's going on? Next thing I know, he's telling me it's all gone. I'm like, what do you mean it's all gone? I got my money back, right? He said, no. You put all your money in an airport. It's called Manston Airport in Kent. And it went bankrupt. So you've lost everything.
Jesus, really?
I'd just given up my job. I got a year on land and I got no money.
Wow.
What do I do now? So it was a bit of a bad start. So I thought, right, I've got to get a job quickly. So I started auditioning for TV shows. But every time I went for BBC, ITV, was getting auditions. I'd found myself an agent. But, of course, everyone I went up against had been on TV 18 years. Well, I've been at sea 18 years. So really, I hadn't thought it through, and I didn't have much of a chance. So as the weeks went by and it was getting worse and worse and worse, and I'm building up a debt, and I started using my credit cards to pay off bills. And I got panickier. And, it's 10 grand, 20 grand in debt, 30 grand in debt, and starting to pile up on me. And I'm pretty, as you can tell, pretty happy-go-lucky. And all those mindset books was telling me, you'll be all right, you'll be all right, you'll be all right. 40 grand. I'm thinking, well, will I be all right? Yeah, I can make it. So I keep auditioning. And then one day I think, there's got to be something else. It can't just be BBC and ITV, and I keep getting declined. So I've got the remote control, and I'm flicking through the channels, going up and up and up and up. There's hundreds of channels. So I'm going up and up and up. And then I come across shopping telly. And I'm watching these people on shopping TV, And if you're from Shopping Telly, apologies. But I'm like, come on, I have no idea who these people are. They're just having a bit of a laugh and they're flogging stuff. I can do that. So I practiced in my bedroom for a couple of months and I sent the tape into the channel. And not surprisingly, in my head, they were like, yeah, come on in. Because I practiced for 3 months, flogging pots and pans, Egyptian cotton towels, you name it. I'd had a go, sent a tape in, and they said, come on, audition. And the year was coming to an end. I was about 11 months in when they finally said, yeah, come in and see us. So I'd also started reaching out to cruise lines, and I'd never worked for Royal Caribbean, but they brought out a bigger ship than the QM2, and they'd said, would be interested in you. So I reached out to them and said, yep, come on out and audition. So now I get to this point where I go and audition for the TV channel. I do the audition and they say, yep, we're interested, but we need to give you 2 weeks. We're going to make our mind up in the next 2 weeks. And so I had to tell the guy at the TV channel, well, listen, because my year's running out, I've said that I'd be interested in Royal Caribbean and they're going to fly me to Miami at the weekend. So you need to tell me if I got the job or not. He said, no, I'll tell you in 2 weeks. So I had to fly to Miami, do a 6-hour audition for Royal Caribbean, not knowing if I was going to get that job, just trying to cover all my bases. And they at the end of it told me they didn't know if I got the job or not. They, because they'd had a few people they were going to interview. So they put me in a hotel overnight and I could fly back the next day. But as we're chatting away throughout the day, 6 hours this goes on, 6-hour interview. And by the end of it, they said, do you want to go out for dinner? I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. So we go out for dinner. And while we're sitting around the table, they said, when you start, blah, blah, blah. I said, hang on. You told me you couldn't tell me yet. And so, believe me, you had us on your intro. When you did that embarkation presentation, you had us. And that was like the first part of the audition. So then I had to lie to them, and I did tell fibs. I told them, look, I've got a TV show in England. I've got to finish that off. Give me 6, 7, 8 weeks. And when that's finished, then I can come and join the ships. So I figured that would give me enough time for the TV show to let me know if I've got it or not. Yeah. And then about 2 weeks later, they called up and said, you got it. So although it was less money than going back to the ships, I took that leap of faith so I could get married and live happily ever after. Anyway, it all paid off. I got the job and it worked out well. And funnily enough, I didn't know it at the time, but I fell madly in love with Shopping Telly because not only did you get to learn TV skills, and I was doing 3.5 hours of live TV 5 days a week. So that, it was a big learning curve for me. And I was really honored that they taught me all the tricks of the trade and got me into TV. And it took me about 9 months to really become very, very confident. Yep. But I loved selling and I loved giving people the opportunity to buy. And when you come off, rather than just being told you did a good job, you can tell how well you did because you see your sales. And I was very fortunate as well because there was a commission on that first job. And so the sales could go through the roof and you'd have a very profitable month. And as you might have been able to tell, I quite like money because money to me is freedom and lets you do what you want. So 16 years of shopping TV now, 16 years. I became head of channel. I now train other people to do TV. And it's been very, very good to me. I've been very fortunate.
I remember seeing you on a show called Make Me Rich where he cut all your credit cards up.
Yeah, that's because by the end, it's true. It's Martin. What's his name? He does that show called. I
know. I can picture him. I can't think of his name. I know what you mean.
How can I forget his name? He's the.
Is it Martin Lewis?
Money expert. That's what he calls himself.
Is it
Martin? Martin Lewis.
It's Martin Lewis. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, he was not well known. And because I was trying to get on TV, I saw they were looking for people for this TV show saying, if you got debt, if you're not good with money, give us a call. So I thought, I'll get on telly. So I applied for it. Yeah. And when he heard that I was 50 grand in debt and I was still spending money like it was water, he said, yeah, we'll come down and see you. And so he was a lovely fella, genuinely a lovely guy. And he really tried to help me out. And he's like, if you cut back on this, look, stop buying lottery tickets, stop buying this much wine, stop taking the missus out, I just bought a linen suit. And he's like, are you crazy? You're spending all this money. You've got all this debt. If you want to sort yourself out, you've got to change something. Anyway, he gave me all this advice and he really could have saved me like 11 grand a year, which is pretty epic. Yeah. But I didn't take any notice and I racked up the debt. And, I was very fortunate. I always sound fortunate. And actually people always say to me, you're so lucky, but I'll be very honest with you. It's not luck. it's all these mindset books. If you read it, and they say if you can believe in yourself and believe you can do something, you can do it. When you make up your mind to do something, you will do it. Whereas most people have got fear, they procrastinate, they don't have the confidence to go for it. And so I've just found that if you can really build a clear picture of what you want and you are determined to do it no matter what, then you're very likely to find things come your way that you would never have expected. Right. And that's really what happened to me. Yeah. So, I sold my house, I paid off my debt, and it did mean going from a lovely detached house to a one-bedroom flat in London. But Helen was up for it, and we said, come on, let's just get on with it and let's make this work. Yep. So we became debt-free pretty quickly, worked hard on the TV show, started saving the cash, and then just worked our way up. It took about 2 years, but then we went and bought a house in London, and then we bought a bigger house in London, and kids started popping up. That changed things again. Yep. And then I just went for promotions, became head of TV. So, don't get me wrong. I worked hard. I make it sound maybe like it's all luck, but when I became the cruise director, I'd worked hard and I deserved that. Yeah. And when I became head of channel, I'd worked hard and I deserved that. So, it is a matter of, if you believe you can do something, you can do it.
Your main focus these days is your position as a transformational coach, a mindset trainer and speaker. Tell us about Engage with Success.
Yeah, so because I felt like I've been so fortunate, all these things I've been able to do, it became pretty clear to me that it's all about what's in your head. It is your mindset. And so I just wanted to share that with other people, really, and help other people enjoy more success and have really colorful and vibrant lives and be able to achieve what they want. And so, in fact, it was an American that really, really helped me. So Tony Robbins, American, really great, loved his work, and he's phenomenal, probably the most famous coach in the world. But in 2005, I bought The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And he lives out in LA, just north of LA, Santa Barbara. And that book was fantastic. And in the preface, he talks about if you follow the principles in this book, you can double your income, double your time off. So I read the book, thought that's brilliant, and did nothing about it. So nothing changed. And then I went back to it in 2010, and I thought, I've got to do this stuff. Come on, I love all this stuff. And I want to double my income. So I'm going to prove this to myself. I'm going to challenge myself. So I started following it, and then I started a blog so people could follow me. And that was the big difference, because suddenly I had accountability because thousands of people were following me. And within 2 years, I doubled my income and doubled my time off. So I'm like, oh my God, this stuff works. I gotta share this. So I actually reached out to Jack and asked if I could train with him and become a Jack Canfield trainer, which I am. So today I'm a qualified, certified Jack Canfield trainer. But that was just the beginning of the journey. So from that, I went into much more deeper coaching. I went on to coaching courses. And then I wrote my own program, because there's lots and lots of stuff out there. I mean, if you're in my office, you'll see I've got literally hundreds of books about mindset, about what to do, about habits, about focus, all of these different areas. And I've come to realize after 30 years of reading all this material and studying the material that they all point to the same thing. And so really what I wanted to be able to do is put a program together that would help people change their lives and not go from book to book to book or course to course to course, but literally be able to bring it all into one place. And so I wrote a system, it's called Engage, and that's why the company's called Engage with Success. Okay. And prior to lockdown, was doing retreats, doing workshops. And of course, now everything's had to go online, using Zoom prolifically now to reach out and help people. And it's a complete and utter joy. So that the great thing about that is that people like Bob Proctor is in his 70s, Jack Canfield now in his 70s. And so I'm 56 today. And so it's something that I can see myself doing for another 20 years if I want to. For me, that isn't about the money. For me, that is about the complete and utter joy of helping set people free. And it really is. People, I think they read books and they see stuff and they say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. But personal development really does work. And I like to think that I'm living proof of that, because I come from a working class background in Dover. My dad was a barman on the ferries. My mum was a dinner lady. And I don't mean that to look back on my past as if it was bad and, oh, I'm a poor guy. But I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I had a couple of times when, I was considering taking my own life, that sort of thing, dark days. But it's when you're in those dark deep depressions, those difficult places that you really wonder what life is all about. And so that's really helped me to bounce back. And each time I feel like I bounce back, and I've got a much more spiritual outlook on life now. And life is amazing. I know sometimes it's hard to believe that, and sometimes we think it's a 4-letter word, but I promise you, life is amazing. And if you can keep yourself in that positive zone, if you can keep yourself hopeful, if you can keep yourself fighting for your dream, life is really, really worthwhile.
Yeah. What type of clients do you get with this, from all walks of life?
From all walks of life, yeah. So from executives that are making way too much money, but they haven't got a balanced life, and their marriages are falling apart, or they don't get to see their kids, right through to people that have, unfortunately, this is something I would never have gone to a few years ago, and lockdown has really changed it dramatically for me, because I started doing far more one-to-one coaching, but now I even work with people that have been through trauma, and the skills that you get as a coach, when you realize it is in their mind, it's transformational. And I know some people might be listening and go, it's not in my mind, and depression's not in my mind, but I can promise you the changes that the right coach can make for you, can get you to get a different outlook on life, can change everything. And sometimes that can be as simple as a conversation or sitting together and having a cup of coffee on Zoom, whereas other times it might take 4 or 5 or 6 sessions. But once you can get to really hear someone, and you can get them to look at life differently, and that changes everything.
Well, how can people find out more about Engage with Success and actually book sessions with you?
Engagewithsuccess.com. Easy to jump on there. There's a newsletter. Feel free to sign up for the newsletter. That's free of charge. It comes out every week. And there's tips in there on how to improve your life and how to go after your dreams. That's really what I'm after. I call it Engage with Success, because this is about helping people make their dreams come true.
Paul Becque, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. Some amazing stories. And it was a pleasure working with you 20 years ago.
Thanks for inviting me on your radio show. Really well done, and congratulations on being in the US and Texas, and having a beautiful little girl, and enjoy life.
Love to Helen and the kids. Appreciate you, Paul.
Bet.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Joe. Bye.
Bye-bye. Paul Becque, everybody.